Go ahead. Good spot here.
Yeah. Looks good.
Yeah. All right. Well, first and foremost, guys, thank you again for coming, taking the time out of your busy Memorial Day weekend to come to join us here at our monthly meetup today. Today we have a very exciting guest. We have Tim over here at Chicago Style Management, who's the owner and operator of Chicago Style Management, and he has experience in managing C and D class properties and is able to make them profitable long term. So Tim here was born and raised in Chicago South Side. He has seen the difference between South Side slumlords and those who care about the neighborhood and their tenants, and are able to truly have a long-lasting business investing in the South Side. So he's here to provide a lot of insights, a lot of tips in regards to how you manage these assets on the South Side. And everybody get warm welcome here for Tim.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Great.
So I want to start off with a question, I guess. What do you guys classify as C and D properties, and what do you guys think makes a neighborhood a D property?
Well, I didn't think there were any D properties based upon all the performance I'm being said.
That's part of this speech too. Go ahead.
Age
is one of them for sure.
Neighborhoods.
What do you think makes? I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. What do you think makes a neighborhood more likely to be a C or D class? What type of
Lighted properties in the neighborhood.
more what properties?
Lighted.
Okay.
Prime income.
So the other one I'm going to point out neighborhood wise, and this is good too when you start to see. So I think one of the best things you can buy is a C class property that turns into a B class. And one of those things is just looking for what makes the neighborhood. All those things are all correlations to the neighborhood, and a lot of that has to do with things like being a food desert, having predatory businesses there. You'll see a lot of these neighborhoods where you have to go 5-6 miles to get to a grocery store. You have to go, you have to drive everywhere. There is no walking. But
when you say predatory businesses, are you talking about like the cash loans or
cash loans, liquor stores, smoke shops? When you walk up and down the main streets of a lot of these businesses, a lot of these neighborhoods that are C and D class, you're going to see things that quote unquote keep people down. They're trying to take the money out of them. Gas stations that are selling, if I go to a Jewel in my neighborhood, that Snickers bar is probably 99 cents. You go to that gas station, it's $3.54. Like it's things like that are sort of taking advantage of the people. And when you compile that to a lot of these bad neighborhood, a lot of these older properties causing, just distress throughout, home ownership goes down because people can afford to keep up with the properties, investors go in and buy, and now you have, places renting for a lot, for too low, two C and D class tenants, that's what we'll call them. So that's really my definition of a C and D class neighborhood. And that was my first tip, I guess, is when you start to see investments in these neighborhoods, so certain C class or D class neighborhoods, you start to see coffee shops being built, positive, bike shops, places to go hang out, something where the neighborhood can come and connect is really when you start to see, a D go into a C go into a B class neighborhood, and now you're gonna have the best of both worlds. So the next thing I sort of want to touch on with that is sort of, who should invest, why a C and D class is a good investment, and why it might be a bad investment for you. So the way that I rate it, you have A class, B class, C class, D class. When you're in an A class, right, you're going to spend a lot of money. You might buy $1 million property, you might cash flow a couple bucks. With a C and D class, so the risk is very low, but you're guaranteed that money for the most part, at least. When you have a C or D class, you might be able to buy a property for $50,000, but that property, if everything goes right, is going to cash flow. But there's going to be some bad days. There's going to be some times when you have a tenant not paying on time. There's going to be and we'll touch a little bit more on this, but even with like Section 8 and CHA in Chicago, for instance, right now, if you guys have been following, Congress is pending the debt ceiling. If that goes into effect and you have CHA tenants, you're not getting paid. So it is a riskier business to be in, but the rewards reap more. And why can you reap more rewards? Because of the bigger risk. So for the same apartment in a B class area versus a C, I might be getting 1,100 in a B class area, but I can rent out in a C class or a D class for 1,500 or 1,600 for the same properties. So the advantage is there because people are willing to pay more because they can't, their credit's lower, their income's lower, they're not as stable, so they can't get the apartments in these better neighborhoods. And that causes the reward to be higher if everything goes well. But with that being said, comes the risk. And my bet to you guys is if you are holding on to these long-term, 5-10 years, you're gonna win. If you're holding on to these for a year, especially when you just buy them, if you're buying something you're buying something under market value to invest in it and make more money, you're gonna have some bad months. You're gonna have the month where your property's 100 years old and you have to redo the tuck pointing, you have to redo the roofs. So you really want to have that cash reserve that you might not need if you're investing in a newer property. So I think that's probably the biggest thing to becoming successful in C and D class property investing is being able to weather these storms. So again, we're just talking about CHA might not be funded next month. So that means you might have, who knows how long the Congress takes to fix it. You've never been through this before, but you might have 1, 2, 3 months of no rent coming in. Can you pay your mortgage? Can you just keep up with everything while that happens? Same thing on if you are doing market at that point. There's going to be some times when tenants are going to be a week or two late. So if you are relying on this month's rent to pay this month's mortgage, it's not going to go as well as it should for you. So you definitely want to have that reserve built up when you're investing in C and D class. So yes, it's definitely, like I said, long-term investment is what we're looking at here to become profitable. In the short term, an A class and a B class may win some months, C and D might win other ones, but you're gonna make more money in the long term. The next thing I want to talk about is sort of what he was mentioning, a lot of the pro rata coming through. And we have a lot of clients that are out of state that it's shown, hey, I can buy this building for $100,000 and everyone pays their rent on time. It's an 8-unit building, and I mean the sky's the limit. I have seen people spill over with some of the things that are just like there's no such thing as a 20 cap. Like you're not buying a property at 10 cap, 8 cap is what's normal. And some people are coming to me and they go, I bought this, it seemed like a great deal. It's like 15, 20 cap. Something's wrong. No one's gonna give that to you. Unless the building's falling apart, so I see that a lot with out-of-state buyers who I just don't know. Now, if you know what you're getting into, it can still be a great investment. If you're buying a house for $50,000 and you know you're gonna put another 30 or 40 in to rehab it, you have a good investment. But when you're buying that with the thought of, oh, I'm gonna put 50 in it, I'm gonna rent it out, and I'm not gonna touch anything, that's where it gets scary. And that's where a lot of people lose, and a lot of the horror stories that you get in C and D class happen, is when you come and you go, all right, my entire life savings in this building, I have nothing left. Well, now we need a new roof, we need a new sump pump, we need a new boiler. And as soon as you do that, we'll be rocking and rolling, but I need $100 grand to get this going. And that's what we see a lot of people fall into. Also scams with the actual income coming in. So you see a lot of people try to sell, and I don't know if these are real estate agents that are helping them or attorneys that are helping them get by, but they will show you a rent roll of $10,000 coming in every month, and you'll take over and they'll have four empty units that were supposed to be filled. You'll have 6 units that are not paying, and you're sort of stuck doing the eviction. So you really either want the property delivered to you vacant so you can get the right tenants in, or you just want to make sure that you're not just taking their word for it, because if they're going to scam you, they're going to scam you and run away. So you want to make sure that you're saying, cool, show me the bank account, show me where, okay, you have a reputable property manager, they can show me the rent. If you don't, you're doing it with pen and paper, I sort of want to see where that money's going and seeing that it's actually coming in, because if there's not 10K in deposits, but you're saying 10K every month comes in, it's probably not actually happening. So that's a big one that we see a lot, especially again, out of state investors, people that are getting bamboozled for their money and things like that. And those are when we start to hear those horror stories of, just I bought this property and it fell apart, and the tenants took over the building, and they just weren't, if you're not going to make it out when you have bad tenants. Which brings me to the tenant portion. So a couple things I want to touch on here. So one is CHA versus market or subsidy versus market. So first off, there is more than just Section 8 of subsidies. And there's actually a lot of good programs out there. So if you're going to get involved in this world, you want to get involved in these other programs as well. We work a lot with Heartland Alliance, which helps like veterans who are homeless move in. Family Rescue, which is a company that if you are a female that's in an abusive relationship, you need to get out, they're helping you move out there. So there's a lot of these programs that you can look for. And the one thing you want to make sure on any of them is that they are guaranteeing the lease. And this is something that CHA doesn't even do. And what I mean by that is, let's say the tenant falls off of the program. For Family Rescue, for instance, if they bring the abuser back into the home with them and let them stay over, Family Rescue takes the program away because they can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves. Makes sense. But the difference is with this particular program, they're going to move that tenant out and put a new tenant in. So when you sign a lease for a year, you're guaranteed that lease is on for a year. There's other ones that I won't mention, but they will put the tenant in, the tenant messes up, and they go, cool, they're no longer part of this program. Good luck, bye. And so those are things that you want to ask anytime you're working on a subsidy. CHA would be part of that one where they will drop a tenant and tell you good luck. The difference is it's a bigger program and there are some things you can do in screening and things like that, but CHA is not guaranteed money like a lot of people think it is. Again, you have the debt center that might come in that you might not get paid for. You have tenants not meeting their obligation to turn in paperwork that we've seen. We had a tenant because they literally did not sign their name. They were given 3 months to go into the office and sign their name and say, this is what I make still. And they didn't, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So those are things that you really want to watch out for, which gets me to the next point of screening. When you screen tenants, we have 2 different criteria, although they're technically the same, but they're a little bit different if they're subsidy or not. But we are looking for, on market side, we are looking for, our credit scores on a C-class neighborhood to be above 550. But we also want to dig a little bit deeper. We want to make sure that their priorities are straight. Because if your credit score is low and you have student loans, you have medical debt, things like that, that's fine. But when you have a car towed off, when you have combat in collections and utilities, they're not putting the right things first. And that just shows the character of your tenant. And that's something you don't want. So we're looking for that credit score. We're also digging a little bit deeper. We're also looking at that they make 3 times the rent. And we're also looking at they're not jumping around. So if you work a job for 3 months, you get fired, and you go find another job, work for 3 months, get fired, you're not going to be stable. You're not paying your rent every month. If you've been at the same job for 5 years, even if you make less, I'd rather have that person than someone making 70 grand for the last month. So that's something to look for on the income side. And then landlord screening. I'm a big believer that calling the current landlord doesn't do much. Because 1, they either want to keep the tenant and they can lie, or 2, they want to get rid of that tenant because they hasn't paid in a long time. But if you go back one more, if you can find that landlord from 2 times ago, they have no reason to lie. They have nothing. So I'm a big believer in that. When it comes to CHA, similar thing. I'm looking for the background screening from 2 tenants, from 2 landlords ago, if possible. And then we're just looking, in the credit score, we're looking to make sure that they are paying their bills on time and taking things serious. Go ahead.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, maybe I'm paranoid, but I always skip trace to make sure that the previous landlord actually owns the place. Is there anything you do besides just do like a true people search to make sure that they're not just having their buddy give a landlord record?
Yeah, we're on the same page. We're also a realtor, so we have access to different tax records and stuff like that. So I guess this is self-promotion, but use a realtor or use someone to help you out if you don't have access to it. But yes, same exact thing. We are making sure, we want to make sure that they owned it and it's the right person. Similar thing. It's either got to be a property management company where we can go on their site and make sure they're legit, or we're going back in the tax records saying, okay, yeah, Tom owns this building. I'm calling Tom, making sure so same time do the same thing. The other 2 or does that one?
Yeah, I guess the other question is besides your service, if someone's getting started out, like, what do you do for background checks? Yeah, I personally use some for
There's a lot out there. So because, we use that folio, but knowing, but I say that knowing that you can, because I think the minimum is like 100 doors, they have that folio. But if you Google, and give me like 30 minutes or 10 minutes after I put the mic down, I'll actually give you a few names, I can't, they're not coming ahead. But there's actually a company, I think the owner's name is Z, but there's a couple companies that are in Chicago based that do really good job screening, and I'll try to think of those and get them to you, but for sure, there's a lot of, if you just Google it, there's a lot out there. You want to make sure that they're looking for evictions. That's another rule. If someone's been evicted, you know, the odds are that that's your home. So if that's something that you're willing to not pay for and let go, and not making, you know, like, we want tenants that we know, we understand that things happen, and you might lose your job one day, and that you can't screen for. But we want the type of tenants that are gonna say, well, I'm gonna move back into my mom because things suck right now, and you can go re-rent this. That's not a bad thing. I know some landlords that want to hold the tenant to a contract. Now you sign 12 months. But when you see that that tenant is falling on hard times, get them out. They're willing to leave. Let them leave, because them leaving with the unit in good condition and using a month of rent while you try to re-rent it is a lot better than them staying there for 8-9 months, not paying rent, destroying the place. So those are the type of tenants that we're looking for. So yeah, and then just, you know, with CHA screening again, we're just looking for that. The second last landlord, we're looking to make sure that they're paying their utilities, things like that. The main difference is we can't screen for income anymore, so you got to look at it and say, hey, if CHA is paying their rent, CHA's already screened them for income. One misconception though is CHA does not screen them for anything else. They don't care. CHA doesn't care if they killed someone, doesn't care if, you know, they're saying, hey, they checked their income, they said that they do not make the threshold, you're approved. So you want to do all the other screening and make sure you're putting in good people in your units, whether they're subsidy or not, you want to do all that screening. Cool, and then I guess the last thing is just, if you are doing market, go ahead, sir.
Let's just talk about a house visit.
Like to their current place. So I have mixed feelings about it, and the reason is, if I'm smart, my house is gonna be clean that day. like you are gonna catch the really bad ones, I guess. But at that point, I mean, yeah, you're gonna catch some, I guess. But 90% of people that's gonna be the one day that their house is clean. It is, they know you're coming over. So that's sort of, you know, things like that. Same thing with like the current landlord check. I think it's just there's too many reasons why you get a false positive and or a false negative, and not, you know, necessarily good true representation. Yeah. Any other questions? Go ahead.
You work with these programs, you mentioned how flexible.
How flexible are they with rent?
We work with who?
Those programs that you mentioned.
Yep. So, and this is why I actually like some of these other programs better. A lot of these charity programs know that they are asking a huge favor of us, and they are willing to pay. CHA, government program, strict guidelines, you're probably actually getting less than what you could get on market, but you're getting that guarantee. There's a lot of different variables, and CHA looks at how they're going to pay you rent. They're paying the lowest out of what you ask for, what they actually say the value is, and then each family themselves has a limit of what they can afford. So they might say, hey, we want them to pay 30% of the rent, but they can only afford $300. So now I shouldn't see your numbers. We want them to pay 10% of the rent, and they can only pay $300. So the most they can get is a $3,000 apartment. So, you know, those three things are going to take the lowest of it. So a lot of times, sometimes you're going to lose on CHA. Some things that you can do is, you know, make sure you have appliances, things like that, because when you don't include those, CHA subtracts from your rent. So if the more you're supplying, the better. If you have a boiler instead of individual furnaces, that can help. But then you're just going into making sure your building itself is well regulated for heat. Those are good and all that. So you want to find there. So any other go ahead.
Average time frame, like CHA application as a landlord.
Yeah.
Application is full. What's the average?
A really long time. When they're running good. felt like it got, so this is weird to say, when they sent everyone home for COVID, I felt like it got better. But now that everyone's back in the office, it's bad again. Our average turn time for change of management, let's say you buy a building and it has a CHA tenant in there, right now it's about 3 months, 90 days, which is from the time I send it in and say, hey, stop paying that guy, pay me instead, it's taking 90 days. Inspections, and here's a weird thing too, is inspections are hard to pass them the first time. And I say that, not that you can't do it, but odds are you are going to get what they call a spot check, where the supervisor then checks it, because they don't believe that you passed it the first time.
What?
Why is that system so long?
Most likely the people that we vote for. To be honest, it's a weird thing, like if you go to, so HUD is a federal program. They then hire people at the local level, or I shouldn't say that, they give the authority of local municipalities to start their own program. They say, hey, Chicago, start a Section 8 program, we are gonna give you $1 million to fund it. And then Chicago's probably whoever's in charge of that, or housing in Chicago puts those people in. I would say Cook County housing ran way better than CHA. And if you go to different states, like when I talk to people and like it's either horrible or it's great. And it's truly about the people that are running it and just the programs that they have. HUD is actually, HUD is clueless of what actually happens on the individual level. But in terms of a top level, what they send out and say, hey, do this, do that, it's actually a decent plan. Just no one follows it. And I just had a meeting or a group meeting or at a conference with someone from HUD, and they're like, oh yeah, you guys, we're like, who do we complain to? How do we get a hold of them? And apparently there's regional management offices. No one knows that, they don't advertise that, obviously, but that's who we're supposed to complain and say things to, but I just don't think it even knows about those.
How do you feel about the programs? And I'll give you an example of one where they'll pay for like the first 6 months of a tenant's rent, and then it's on to the tenant. Like I know in back of the yards they're doing something for Venezuelan immigrants to do 6 months of rent, and then it's up to the tenant to cover it.
So I guess the question at that point would become, would you approve that tenant with no help? Because if not, that 6 months comes real fast and they're still on the couch not working and you're stuck. So that's why I want, like, going back to my earlier point, you want to make sure anytime you take those programs on, that they are fully guaranteeing the year. I don't care if it's the same tenant in there, but if that tenant goes AWOL and you have to throw them out, yeah, I want a new tenant. Also look for programs that have case managers. So we do a lot with VAs again. Even Section 8 now has a VA, it's a separate voucher just for veterans. And those vouchers come with case limits. If it's a normal CHA app or normal CHA tenant, my recourse is to have CHA pull their voucher from them. And then I don't have any money, I have to evict them, and it's nothing good. With the veteran program, it's actually really cool. I call our guy has that case manager, say, hey, something's going on, it's really weird. Your guy, this is a true story last week, this is what we deal with on a weekly basis. Hey, your guy just tried to burn down our porch.
Oh my God.
Can you go talk to him and see what's going on? Yeah, he got into a fight with the guy tuck pointing, because the guy tuck pointing, the dust was falling onto the porch. So he decided to light the porch on fire and tell the guy he's not coming down.
Obvious solution.
Obviously, yes. So that was my Thursday afternoon. But we can call the VA caseworker to go talk to them and try to find a solution of what's going on and all that stuff. But
these programs that you're speaking of, first I've heard them, so thank you for sharing your expertise. Is there any minimum guarantee of a landlord that you would have to offer that in your application? Like I will 50% of my building, or 1 unit or 2 units, and you guarantee them in that application process?
I haven't ran into anything like that. No.
And do they reach out to you, or do you actively seek these programs out?
Both. I think it's sort of like this, right? You guys are coming to these events and you're actively going to find, like, just overhear things and all that. when you're hanging out with one person, like I started with Family Rescue on accident because she called me, she saw a post and saw it. But from there, like, she moved companies. And so like, all right, here's your new family rescues person, but now she's over here at Heartland. Okay, cool, like, so like, you're in that circle, and when you're open with it, and they, like, people know that about your, you know, your investment, you're gonna get to know their names, and they'll I mean, we get calls where it's just like, hey, cool, I have 5 families at the place this month, so what do you have? Cool, all right. And I go from there. But
Yeah, do you have any recommendations for understanding, or getting into a neighborhood that maybe you understand the time in? Like, is it this walking a lot of the streets that understand like what some of the businesses are block by block? I understand like in a lot of places, like you'll have kind of like desirable streets in the neighborhood, something to live on. Some of the streets still are. Yeah.
you already know, I mean, you already gave the answer. I mean, walking it is really, especially in Chicago, because Chicago is the weirdest city, at least I have not found one like it. If I say Inglewood, right, you guys are all probably going to have the same connotation of, oh, it's a neighborhood has a lot of, you know, it's a C or D class thing. There's blocks in the neighborhood that are all $500,000 mansions. All with elevators, all with huge yards, like Chicago block by block changes. So if you're not sort of around there and walking around to see what does 75th have, the 75th might be a great block and 77 is terrible. Go ahead.
So to take that even one step further, from your experience, what like C class neighborhoods do you recommend for people trying to turn that kind of asset class?
So again, I'm gonna go off of what I'm looking for. I wanna find those neighborhoods. If I'm not in it already, and especially if I'm trying to hit a home run, I want those that have the best chance of getting to a B class. So I'm look for coffee shops, so off the top of my head right now, back of the yards, Woodlawn. Areas that the government's putting money in. So Woodlawn, you have the library coming, things like that. Back of the yards has a lot of buildings, and you're seeing things get built, community centers, things like that will create it. So that's what you want to look for. Just look for big developments. Look for, you know, big shopping centers, things like that.
So first off, great information, Tim.
Thank you.
Secondly, if you've got a question, please speak up so that the entire room can hear your question. And we know what Tim's speaking about, because I'm sure everyone has the same question. We all want to know. So what's the biggest misconception about dealing with some type of government subsidy?
I think the biggest is that it's guaranteed. I guess I'll say slash just sort of falls into the same thing, that they did any screening before they put somebody in your property. So CHA is a lottery. You win the lottery, you get a voucher, and a lot of times it's even passed down from, you know, grandma had it, and then the voucher went to the mother, you know, all that stuff. So because of that, you know, you need to make sure you're screening people. You need to make sure that you want the type of people that if something hits the fan where it's not going to be pleasant, they're not going to be able to pay, that they are going to, you know, find their own way to move out or find their own way to pay. So you want good people, and not to rely, you know, on the government program itself.
That's another big misconception, is you don't get to screen them. That you
Yes,
just get
I've heard that too.
crap that you
You have to. So, and again, I think a lot of that comes from they pass these laws and they don't really truly explain it. We now have in Cook County, and I don't know if it passed Illinois yet, but it probably will be soon. You cannot discriminate based on source of income. That does not mean that you can't look at their credit. Does not mean that you can't look at where they lived before. They were porters, all that stuff. It literally just means that when you have a checklist of I approve these 10 criterias, that I'll check the 9 boxes and I automatically check the makes 3x run. Everything else you want to run the same exact way. And that's actually a good way to stay out of fair housing as well. As I ran it exactly the same way. You know, only approve ones that would have passed everything else.
I hear there are tenants right now who are just asking if you take Section 8 and if you say no, that they can sue you.
Yes, I don't know about tenants,
Or
but
even like.
there are so what I'm looking for, auditors that will do it. So they're basically paid by the government to make this call and say, hey, me and my husband want to come look at this place. We're CHA voucher, you're gonna accept it. And then when you say no, it's recorded, the government has it, and they're coming after.
So what's the best way to answer that?
Say yes.
Always yes.
Just
What
say
about-
yes.
What about, I'm not approved?
So CHA doesn't approve you until you submit the application to the town.
But then that is a true statement. You have to be approved.
You have to, but you have
You have
to,
to pass the.
You have to
CHA
consider that.
inspection.
you have to pass.
Right?
Huh?
That could be months.
It could be months, so fine, so, yeah, so I mean, I know a lot of landlords, and this is fully in your right, right? They fill out the application, they hit your credit score, you want a 600 credit score, they have a 600. I've seen CHA applicants with 800 credit scores, like, they're not, you know, there are some that have good credit, there are some that are gonna pass everything. You submit the paperwork, you say, cool, we're gonna have an inspection in 60 days. Oh, here's a market tenant, they applied, they can move in tomorrow. That's fair game.
And can you ask, you can't discriminate on source of income. Can you provide a minimum income or not, I'm sorry. not minimum
Require.
income, minimum time on job. So you're saying it's common for us to say 2.5, 3 times income. What I don't find common is saying must be on the job for a minimum of 3 to 5 years.
So, market wise, we do. So yes, for a general thing. I'm not an attorney to know on the CHA side of things, because I would sort of group that into source of income. It's how long you've been at a job, but you know, so the source is your job, anything to do with your job. So I would probably say no on the CHA side, but I honestly don't have that answer, another answer for sure, so it could be either way. If anyone finds out.
Any attorneys in the room?
Yeah, exactly, we're the attorneys.
My guess is you can. So we've got a 50-50 here. So the best advice is.
It's
Attorney
definitely,
to
it's
answer
definitely
for you.
possible. And to go to your point, or go to that point even further, HUD has, and this is something you can take to them, when you put that market tenant and they complain, HUD has given CHA and every other Section 8 program the ability to pay a hold fee. CHA does not, I know that for sure, but in the law, HUD says, CHA, you know you're gonna take 3 months to inspect this, you can pay them 3 months of rent and say, give us 3 months to figure this out. They don't, so that's on them, that's not on us for putting a market tenant in, if we do decide, hey, we don't want CHA, and a market tenant came and all that stuff. Any other questions?
So for an investor who has a property in the C or D class area, and they're trying to make the determination whether or not they're gonna rent that vacant unit they have out via market or rent the unit out via sort of subsidized housing. I mean, I guess what are some things that they can take into consideration to help guide that decision on what makes more sense?
So I'm gonna answer it in 2 ways, the way you want me to, and then my actual answer. So my actual answer is you don't. If you're open to it, you take whatever comes and you have your qualifications, and I want a good tenant. I don't care if they're CHA, I don't care if they are, you know, market. With that being said, in an ideal world, I probably want, and I think this will happen randomly, I want some kind of mix. If I have 10 units, I want 3 and 7 or 5 and 5, or you know, something like that. Because again, if there's an issue with your building, CHA stops paying because your concrete broke and you can't do anything about it until the spring, it's the middle of winter. If you're all CHA, you lost your entire rent. If you're, you know, 5 and 5, at least you have some money come in. So I like having a mix personally, but I think it randomly will happen itself if you let it happen. And that's sort of what we do, because again, it comes down to a good tenant. You have good tenants, it's gonna be great. If you have bad tenants, there are some CHA tenants that will destroy your property, and there are some CHA tenants that will live there for 30 years and fix their own stuff and never bother you and take, you know, like your home will be more beautiful than before. To answer the question more on your side of what you want to answer, the biggest consideration is going to be quality of the building, because to pass that inspection is a higher end than what I would like. It needs to be, everything needs to be, every wire in there can't be a hot wire. There can't be, you know, they will go through it and say, hey, it's too dirty. You gotta clean it up. I've seen a failure because the number two, and the two flat, the number two in front of the door was fading. So it wasn't clear enough that this was unit two labeled, even though we went up the stairs past unit one, the two is fading, so it could have been a two, it could have been 10, they don't know.
Do we pay per inspection?
First two are free, third inspection 75. But
So does, do you know the website that, shows what maximum rents or area market rents are for Chicago Housing Authority? Or do you know the number? How much can you rent a one bedroom, one bath for in Chicago?
It's all different, right? Neighborhoods are all.
yeah, so again, so it goes off of those, so it goes off of three different, or a couple different criteria you got. So one, to get your very unclear answer, if you go to their website, thecha.org, you'll get a very unclear answer. With that being said, a basic voucher, a one bed can go up to 1,300. However, they are gonna take that, go to your neighborhood and go, no, one bed's on these 3 blocks around here, only go for 800, so that's your max. You can also, there's also a thing called an opportunity zone. So if you are in, let's say, Lincoln Park, or somewhere that's more of an A or B class, all of a sudden that voucher, it's not a special voucher. There's no such thing as an opportunity zone voucher. It's literally just anyone with a voucher that walks into an opportunity zone, it automatically becomes an opportunity voucher. That voucher, a one bed might go for $3,000 now because you're living downtown on Rush Street or in Lincoln Park, somewhere in a high quality penthouse. Your voucher will go for, instead of 1,100, it's 3,000. Go ahead.
I'm about to house hack and be like a new landlord, so I'm about to list my place, and I'm like curious, could you like share your qualifications or like process, the pre-screening process?
What class property?
B?
B?
Jeff Park.
Okay, oh, Jeff Park, okay. Then I would be at so I'd be looking for credit of 600 or higher. Be looking at 3x income. I'd be looking for at least 1 year on the same job. With the only exception of that is if you were a manager at store X, and then all of a sudden you're a district manager at you were manager at Burger King, and then you got promoted, and then you went to McDonald's to be a district manager. Same industry, higher pay, it makes sense why you left. Like if it has a story like that, I'll let it go for less than a year. Looking to make sure that they put housing first, so no comment, no people's gas, water bills, anything like that in elections. And then again, I'm gonna try to find go back to landlords and do all the research that you somehow make sure that you're getting the actual landlord and find out information probably where as a tenant and then go from there. But come on.
I also got a place in Florida, so I'm expecting like students. Do you also accept like co-signers? Or like, what do you think about that?
Again, so for that, yeah. So again, it all goes into if the story fits. So just like how I was talking about with income, right? Like I want a year in the job, but there are exceptions because it makes sense why you would leave. You were at the shop for 5 years, you left for a promotion. If you are 45 and don't have credit yet, something went wrong. Something is not adding up. You are 19 and you don't have credit yet. Realistically, I get more like most 19-year-olds shouldn't have credit. The only time the 19-year-old really does have credit is if their parents built it for them. So in that case, like, hey, you're 19, you're in college. At that point, yeah, show me your mom has money, your dad has money, they're gonna pay for it.
But to the point of a co-signer, pretend your tenant who is a teenager or college student does not pay. What recourse do you have to actually get those parents or co-signers to actually pay?
That's actually a good question. Absolutely not. Which is why you don't make them co-signers, you make them leaseholders.
Leaseholders.
And on the topic of house hacking, I could be wrong, but for people who are starting out, don't put like restriction, like can't you just like not discriminate, but be more picky and
Yeah.
There's certain rules that you can, but it's
not a good
it's not a good way to start. There's a lot to prove there and all that. And then the second thing about you lose all that anonymity and all that stuff. So you're gonna get scrutinized more than you want, especially if you're trying to go there for, let's say I'm gonna live here for a year, I'm gonna move out, and you turn down these people and you move out. Now they're watching you, and that FHA loan is getting called and stay there for 2 years. You're opening eyes that you don't need to. I think. But
What do you think about allowing pets or giving an option to?
I think the stat right now is 80% of renters have pets. So not doing it is going to. Sure. Yeah. So that would be the next part of it. But yeah, not allowing them is going to mean your pool is a lot smaller. But to her point, I agree. And you're doing them a favor. Hey, you can bring your dog, but they're going to pay me $100 more a month because your dog might wreck something.
Yeah.
Also, just caveat: check your insurance company, your homeowner insurance, and make sure there's nothing restricted. Landlords actually aren't that mean towards pit bulls. State Farm is. But
So if you've not ever taken pets before, if you don't have a designated poop area for the pets, I would offer a suggestion, which is, we do accept pets. The pet pays rent, which we expect you as the pet parent to pay, and we do require a DNA sample. Because we will check if poop is in the courtyard. It doesn't need to be. And we will charge a hefty fee if it's your pet. Now, I don't ever intend to actually do that.
Yeah. I
just want to say it, and I make them introduce me to the vet, and I'll take a pair of scissors and take a little bitty hair sample and put it in the vet.
Just the hair.
with that being said, to his point, your lease needs to have a finding system. So
Yes.
for pets, especially for pets, is a good point for it, but really for anything, because let's say your lease, you use the standard car lease and it says no smoking. Great, they start smoking. You now have two choices. Do I try to evict them and lose 6 months of rent and possibly more because I have to find someone, I have to go to court, all that stuff? Or do I just let it go? Most of the time you're gonna let it go because it's not that bad. If your lease has a finding system in it for not picking up after the dog, not having your dog on a leash in the hallway, smoking in the apartment, things like that, and it's $50 per occurrence. Our lease on pets says, we find a pet in your thing that's not authorized, you're paying us $50 a day, and you're gonna pay us $100 to reinspect to make sure that the pet's gone when you tell us the pet isn't there anymore. So having that in there, I don't have to just evict them now, I can just keep charging them until that pet's gone.
I know insurance companies give you a discount for things like fire extinguishers, smoke alarms, whatever. Are any of them offering a discount now if you have security cameras in the hallways, the courtyards, and so forth?
So I used to be an insurance agent 10 years ago, so I can't speak that much on it, but we used to. So at least farmers 10 years ago did. I'm sure it still exists because it means that they can find out who did what and then prosecute and go after them. So I would assume yes, but I don't know for sure. Yep.
I always ask for shots of the vets. Make sure that basically buy food or
Yeah, so I actually use a system called petscreening.com. It's an app, it's literally an application for pets. So just like we screen humans, we screen the pets. It rates them 1 through 5, 1 being like low credit score, 5 being high. And that's what we base the pet fee on. But that looks at immunizations, make sure that the pet, there's never been a lawsuit against the pet, checks for that they're up to date on their shots, all that stuff. Petscreening.com.
And it helps meet up big ESAs.
Oh yeah, that's what they got their start on too. So if anyone comes to you and says, "Oh, I have an ESA or service animal," you say, "Cool, go fill this out," and they contact the doctor. They do all the. It's like basically makes it where you can never be sued for discriminating against it because it's not your choice. They go, they get the doctor's note, they make sure the doctor's real. I've listened to a couple podcasts with the guy that owns it, and some of the funniest ones are like they'll get letters from doctors that have been dead for 10 years.
Oh,
So like it literally goes through and like they know all these doctors and know all these different things and find out what's real and what's not, and you don't have to worry about misreading a letter and taking the wrong guess on it. Cool. Other questions? Anything else?
So back to potential rents.
Yep.
It sounds like even if someone has like a $1,300 voucher, but market CH is gonna come in and pay like, well, market's only 800 in this area, so we're gonna adjust to 800.
Yep.
Is it always tied to market, or do you ever encounter situations where someone actually got more than what they would have otherwise got?
Only if they misguessed. But actually, let me take that back. No, it will never happen because one of the criteria is what did the ad say? So if you're advertising for 1,200, the most they're gonna pay is 1,200, they're never gonna go over that. But let's say you're just like, hey, I wanna try that 14, even though I think it's only worth 1,200, and they give you 1,400, odds are you probably misread the market, you could have got 1,400. Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
So let's say I want to give up the thrill of self-managing a property.
I like this guy, already.
What does that look like? Like, how much should we be budgeting? Is it like a per door basis or percentage of rents?
Yeah, it's all gonna vary. So there's companies that do it both ways. Generally, and this is why, we went to a flat fee because of what I'm about to say. Generally, the more rent is, the less the percentage is. So if you're renting out a $2,000 apartment, probably closer to 5%. If you're renting out a $800 apartment, it's gonna be 10 or 12%. Personally, we charge a flat fee of $99 per unit. And it generally will calculate out to those, not like if we're in Lincoln Park, it's generally calculate out closer to 5%. We're in Inglewood, and it's also be closer to 10 or 12. So that's usually what I would say the average, you're probably, like I said, that 100 to 125 a door is probably about average, because the percentage companies will adjust based on where you're at.
That's per month.
Per month, correct? Yep.
Thank you.
So let's say I'm an out-of-state investor and I'm looking to invest in the area and they contact you. And obviously, like, apart from the broker that they're working with and, you know, finding their team of like contractors, lenders and stuff like that, the property manager is actually a really key component in helping them analyze the deal. So like, in what capacity and at what point in their investment process do you suggest that they reach out to you? And like, do you guys use stuff like, you know, swap neighborhoods with them or give them some insights onto maybe what they expect for expenses?
Yeah, so here's and I'm a realtor as well, so I say this with love. Realtors make money on deals. And they don't have to deal with it afterwards. I'm not gonna tell you to buy a bad investment if you have to manage with it, because as I think we've mentioned, C and D class are much more labor intensive, and especially when you're starting out, especially when the building has a lot of work to do. Charging the same amount of money, I want easy jobs. I want ones. So generally, I have a lot of people. My hope is that they get in touch with us to go walk during AI. So when they're going to do the inspection, for us to be there with them, so we can see all the units. Because a couple of things. One, I've had people come to us after they closed, and their realtor told them, "Oh yeah, you're going to rent these all out. You're going to rent these all out for $1,500 a piece, and you're going to make good money." And I look at them like, the neighbors are all renting for $800. There's no way, like there's no way this. I don't know where the math comes from or where, and it's it's upgraded. Cool, but there's dudes selling crack in the corner. Like, I can't get someone to pay that much to live here. Like, it's not gonna happen. Same thing with, closing, and I had a client that closed, and he actually had them put in a new boiler because the inspector found out that, the boiler was broken. But they never re-inspected, the boiler was set up wrong, they didn't switch out anything else but the body of the boiler. And that caused everything to fail going up. And so now he's looking at, 50 grand of damage of stuff that like could have been caught if the right eyes are there. So as a realtor, I don't want to say don't trust your realtor, but make sure you can trust your realtor, but also know that like they might not have the most experience actually managing the properties or know what to look for at that point.
All right, so if you're in a D class or even C class neighborhood, what time would you recommend going over to the property? Something I've heard is usually you want to go during school hours, just in general.
Why are we going?
Yeah, why?
To manage it.
Well, there's a problem. No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Or like, let's say you have a vacancy, you need to see what's going on.
yeah, here's the thing. I would say one of two options. A, either don't buy, if you're not willing to go over there when there's an issue because of the neighborhood or whatever, either A, don't manage or don't buy there, or B, hire a management company. We're out at, the stairs being burnt down, I was with CPD till 7 o'clock on Thursday, getting your police report, getting all that stuff taken care of. And like, there's gonna be times where you can't predict when you have to go out there or when you have to get a plumber out there. Same thing. it is much harder sometimes to get a plumber, like you can't call the plumber that's working in Lincoln Park and say, hey, go to the west side and fix this. Unless you have a good relationship and you know if they're willing to, it's a lot harder. So best suggestion, and this is biased, hire a team like ours that's used to it and that has people that know how to handle the situations, know how to handle themselves in those neighborhoods. But B, otherwise, I would say, if you are buying it and if you are gonna self-manage, make sure you can go there at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, because if you're not going to walk it at that point, Murphy's Law, you're gonna get called there. And everyone has a different top, like, I grew up in areas that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily go to and just hanging out there, so I'm a little more familiar with it. Everyone's gonna have a different tolerance level of what they can accept and where they're willing to go and who they know.
Tim, where are a lot of the properties that you mostly manage?
We are everywhere from South Shore, Inglewood, so our office is in Bridgeport. We do have stuff going north from there, but I'd say 80 to 90% is going south. Southeast stuff, some suburbs of Calumet City and Dalton, things like that. And then west towards like Midway area, we manage as well. But
Do you guys also do a tenant placement?
Yep.
How much is that?
First month's rent.
How long have you guys been in business?
So we've been around since 2020 as this company. Prior to that, my entire team was part of Cal Realty. In 2020, I bought the book out from the owner there just because he didn't want to do management and have that risk anymore. But Cal Realty was around since 07, so depending on how you want to look at it. Cool, anything else?
Nice, yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
Awesome, thank you guys.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Cool, thanks, man.
All right, everybody, give it up for Tim. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and transition into our networking. Before we start, let's go ahead and get a picture back in this corner over here. We'll take our monthly picture, and then we'll go ahead and get our networking started. So thanks everybody for coming this month.